Hello everyone, I'm back today to talk about the 7th president, a spirited and controversial dude named Andrew Jackson. This presentation comes from Chapter 3, Section 4 in your orange book. It should also help you with your Trail of Tears project as well. We call this the Age of Jackson. And in this particular presentation, we're going to backtrack just a little bit to Goal 1, Objective 2, analyze the political freedoms given to the Native Americans prior to 1820. Then moving into Goal 2, we're going to talk about the first objective, analyze the effects of territorial expansion and the admission of new states to the Union. And Objective 4, assess political events, issues, and personalities that contributed to sectionalism and nationalism. Our essential question today is, what changes did Andrew Jackson represent in American political life? We're going to start with the election of 1824, in which only one major political party really represented, and that was the Democratic Republicans. There were actually 4 people running: Adams, John Quincy Adams, that is, Andrew Jackson, Henry Clay, and someone named William Crawford, who was a representative from Georgia. After the election, there was no clear winner of the Electoral College. So, of course, if you can remember back, who decides when there's no clear winner of the Electoral College? Yes, the House of Representatives. So Clay pulls for Adams because he agreed to back the American system, and he backs out of the competition. And John Quincy Adams is chosen over Jackson as the president by the House of Representatives. Of course, this makes Jackson quite angry. He calls this election a corrupt bargain because he had actually won the popular vote. Clay had also given the position of Secretary of State as part of this deal. So Clay backed out of the presidency, but agreed to the position of Secretary of State, was given that by John Quincy Adams. Jackson supporters formed a Democratic Party. Okay, they knocked the Republican off, Democratic Republican, and opposed Adams' policies. So in the next election, the election of 1828, had a very high voter turnout because voting requirements had been lowered. Previously, only the people who could vote were white male property owners. New voter requirements said that all white men aged 21 and older could vote, regardless of whether or not they owned land. This is Jackson's election. He finally is elected, and he appeals to the common man. He's not a representative like John Quincy Adams and many of the other presidents of the wealthy elite. He's there to represent the common, your average man. Jackson becomes the first Western president. He's from Tennessee, and Tennessee at this point in time is considered the West. Beats Adams. And then again in 1832, he is reelected for a second term. He was the first to use the national nominating conventions. Jackson's presidency was unusual because he was not a well-educated man. He'd not been educated in the elite colleges that the other presidents were. And he was a war hero. If you remember, he was praised for his efforts in the Battle of New Orleans, the War of 1812. When he came into office, he really created something called the spoils system, which was brought in new officials to fill government positions, and these were friends and supporters who filled this position. He also had what was called the kitchen cabinet, and these were friends who came in to discuss political matters with him. It was not his official cabinet, in other words, not the Secretary of State. It was not other cabinet members. It was instead kind of his buddies. And this created a situation that was somewhat problematic. Of course, you can imagine why. But in general, his presidency represented a greater democracy. more people were involved. But still, women and many minorities are still ignored. And of course, there is nobody dealing with the issue of slavery. There's what's called a great silence. When I come back in the next video, I'm going to talk about the tariffs, particularly the Tariff of Abomination.